Welcome to the Attract Your Ideal Clients podcast. The show is for entrepreneurs who sell their expertise, including trainers, consultants, and coaches looking for real-world, actionable marketing advice to help them identify their competitive strengths, find and fix the marketing bottlenecks that are holding them back, and confidently make the right marketing decisions for their unique business. In today's episode, we're looking at ways to initiate conversations with more potential referral partners, as well as how to best uncover opportunities for helping each other succeed. Joining me today is Jaclyn Strominger from Leap to Your Success. And if you enjoy the show, I hope you'll consider subscribing and leaving a review. Here we go. Okay, so you and I, when we first talked, we were chatting about what you've been doing. You have a marketing background, which is great. So you and I are going to be able to geek out on that a little bit.
Yeah.
But you were going to be so generous to really share what's been working for you as you've been building your business. And I just, for context for people listening, I wanted to give you a moment first just to briefly describe what it is you do, who you help, kind of problems you solve.
Yep. So I'm Jaclyn Strominger, right? And I am my company is Leap to Your Success. And I am a high performance coach, leadership coach. And I always like to say, pardon the profanity, but I help people get shit done. And I really work with leaders, CEOs, professionals who are here and they want to go here, or they've been at a plateau and they just can't seem to get out of their own way. And I take them through a framework that I call the LEAP framework, which is leveraging communication and their strengths. It's going through their energy. How do they look at the energy that they come to the world with? How do they view themselves on a day-to-day basis? And how do they act under stress? Am I a victim? Am I too compassionate? So do I end up doing more for others and actually don't end up doing my own stuff? And then we're looking at action plans and performance, because as marketing, we all know that we have to MMA. It's a big thing. And MMA to me is measure, monitor, and adjust. We're measuring, we're monitoring, and adjusting. It's how we know what's working, what's not working. What do we need to tweak? So, I work with a variety of different clients. I've got, people that are mortgage professionals, real estate professionals. I've got people that are CEOs of businesses, and I've got people that are small, they're their own entrepreneur. One of my clients right now is a brand. She has a brand agency. She's really, local, amazing person. So I kind of don't have a specific industry that I work with. It's more about working with a person who really, as like I said, wants to get shit done and level up.
I love that. Wanting to get shit done. Boy, am I in that category too, right? And I wanted to sidebar real quick with that too, because one of the things that's interesting to me, and this is, I think, my own block, right? Where I think about people that engage in coaching of any type, right? And I think about, it's almost like the vitamin versus the painkiller thing, right? So I jump into this assumption that people that are already driven and successful, gotten to a certain level of success, are somewhat self-motivated to a degree, right? And if they got to this level, right, wherever this is, then they can just maybe figure they read enough books or whatever, and then they get to here. And of course, that's not the case, right? Because you work with people that are gotten to this point, and then they need that extra help to get up here. Where I, as a marketer, always try to figure out is like what is the impetus for them to realize that. So when you're meeting with somebody, we'll talk about tactics later,
Yes.
or how you reach them. But what is, dare I say, pain point? Because I know that sounds so like negative, but it's not. Where's the
Well,
pain there
I feel
that
like
they
it's
go,
cliche. People talk about the pain point, like you got it
yeah,
right, right?
yeah. And it's like, to get from here to now, oh, because I want to get there, but I can't do it on my own, I guess. They have to have that kind of, they have to have that realization themselves to some degree, right?
Yep. So a lot of times, actually, it's asking the questions. It's like, so where's your business been? Like, where are you going in your business? Where do you want to go? And so it's not just looking at last year. It's like, okay, so what did you do in 2022? What did you do in 2023? So did you have the same goals? And if you have the same goals, obviously something needs to, I don't want to say not working, but something needs to shift and we need to make an adjustment. Or it's also the person who's been, in their career, and maybe they've been working at a company for 5 years, 10 years, and maybe they're not getting the promotions that they want. Or maybe they're going on job interviews and because they want to get up there, but they're not getting what they want. So there's something that is stopping them from getting that. And sometimes we just have to peel back some of those layers and look and see what those blocks are. And sometimes it's like a small tweak that we have to say to ourselves. Sometimes it's working with people to get through their gremlin. Like, what is that gremlin that's sitting on your shoulder? Like, I have a client, we named her gremlin Marge. If Marge pops out, right? What do you need to say to Marge? But it's also recognizing that Marge actually exists. We all have a gremlin. We all have that, right? So we just need to name it and helping them figure out those blocks are. So um it's people who are reached here, but we also have to understand that a lot of people who have reached up or have leveled up even further, most people have a coach. Sometimes they have two, sometimes they have three, right? So, think about somebody like who's a major athlete. And I don't necessarily know what coaches he had, but if you've got, you know, Michael Phelps, somebody that just comes to my mind, right? I'm sure he's got his swim coach, like who's going to work on what he's doing in the water. I'm sure he's got a nutritional person who's working at what he's putting into his body. Somebody else who's, working on his strength. So not that you need to hire a bunch of coaches, but that's one of the things that I love is that we get to help people level up their game.
I love that. Yeah, because it's such a good point. I think uh, athletes is one of the things I keep coming back to when it comes to even recovery or how we treat ourselves or how we, right? We don't blink an eye or bat an eye when we think about an NFL player taking the off season to recover and to rest and to get surgeries or whatever. And
Right,
and then,
right,
because we go, of course they're going to do that. It would be nuts if they play. They're not going to play year
right.
round, right? But for ourselves, or that they have coaches and they have, NFL team or whatever has how many different
How many
coaches on the
coaches, right?
staff, right? And then they have their personal, and yet for ourselves, it's like, gotta just grind it out, yeah. And
Right,
and coaching has obviously evolved over the last 10, 15, 20 years so much. In good ways and bad ways.
right,
There
right.
can be bad parts about it. Now, the big challenge, you mentioned having that conversation with people, and I look at that as being the real crux point in any kind of client relationship, right? It's getting to that conversation because as a coach or a consultant or as an advisor, whatever you want to call it, it's really about listening and hearing where their situation, what their reality is, at least as they see it, and then being able to see ways to help them. The challenge for most people, and I'll include myself in this, is getting to the point of that conversation, right? If we were having 3 conversations a day with potential clients, we'd be like, book
Right,
solid in a couple weeks, right?
right, right.
So let's talk a little bit about how do you initiate those conversations? What are the boots on the ground kind of ways that you actually meet people, get them to talk to you, get them to respond to you at all? What does
Yeah.
that look like for you?
So I am a firm, huge believer in networking. And I am a believer in in-person networking. So I truly love getting out there and connecting with people. When I'm out, I'm involved in a networking group, a couple of them. But I also go out to different events to make connections and network. And I always want to think about when I'm at a networking event, it's not about the number of people that I meet, it's about quality. I want to be able to walk away with at least 2 quality conversations that when I go back to my office, I can do an amazing follow up and say, hey, Marcus, it was so great meeting you. We talked about this. I'd love to set up, a one on one, or let's grab coffee. Preferably, I actually would just love doing Zoom because it's efficient and time effective. And sometimes I actually feel like when you go and meet somebody in person, a lot of distractions can happen. So when you're actually on Zoom or your preference of video conferencing, um, you're actually a lot more focused. So it's networking outside. I do network on social media. I mean, I love LinkedIn, but again, with trepidation, I say, because I'm one of those people that will reach out to people saying, "Oh, I want to actually have a conversation. I don't want to try to sell you something. There's something about somebody's profile or something about their business that I want to know more about." So you have to be curious about the other people. So how can you make it about them, not about you? Um, and pick up the phone and talk, ask, you know, figure out who do you want to meet. So again, networking is really big. And then the other things that I do, I love getting and being a guest on podcasts. It's absolutely fantastic having people go to my website. And then I have different lead magnets on my site. So that's really important to me. I have right now, if anybody goes to my website, it's one of the things that I offer. It's one of the things that I offer to people that when they're listening to a podcast, uh, is go and grab. I have a vision and mission 2025 right on the front of my website, and grab that. And I kid you, like, I'm not lying when I say this. Like, I want to just have the conversation with you to see what you're like, work on it. Let's have a conversation and let me help you master what that vision and mission is for 2025. And it doesn't have to be, you know, just at the beginning of the year. This is something that you need to always be looking at and always be refining. So it's our mission and our vision for the year and the goals that we set is something that we write, and that we have to always, again, go back to MMA. We have to measure, monitor, and adjust it. Is it always staying with us? Is it resonating with what we are doing? Do we have to tweak a word because it's not working for us, or it is working for us? So go and grab that. And then I have other, tools in the publications as well. So that's actually a really big thing about, and again, it's for me, the biggest thing is what are the things that I can do to have a conversation with somebody so I can ask questions about their business, get to know them. And I never think first and foremost about how I can work with them. I think about how I can help them. Like, who can I connect them with? Is there somebody in their business, or is there something in their business that I might be like, ooh, I have this idea. Maybe you've thought about this, but I want to share. Or, oh, you know what? I think I've got a person I might be able to connect you with. So I think about them first.
Just the whole key. And it's so easy for other people to say like networking is all about focusing on the other person. My experience with networking has maybe jaded me to the in-person stuff, right? So I talk about this too much. It's like I have to get over myself with this, but like, okay, so I started going to like Chamber of Commerce events back in the 90s,
Yep.
when websites were still like, ooh, a website, right?
Right.
So there was no LinkedIn, none of that stuff. And my I had some really good, I mean, I certainly had some good positive things coming out. I got clients, I got all sorts of opportunities, but my impression of the dynamic of it was very like transactional is not even the way it was, like almost predatory. Like there were people that like you saw them coming at you and they're the networking king or the network, and they're going to add you to their collection, and you just feel like, and it was so process driven, and like not like I get like I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but I guess the reason I'm
I
bringing that
totally
up
get
is,
it, though. I
yeah,
totally
right.
understand.
So you've
Right.
seen it, right? And
Right.
so, and you see it on LinkedIn too. Like I can tell if somebody's like wanting to connect with me because I'm just another body that they can add to their list of people. And there's not really any, like you and I have talked a couple of times now. Like you and we're friends now, like as
Right.
far as I'm concerned,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And to me, that is the best kind of thing. And I think it's what's why I love so much about podcasting. This
Yeah.
is a natural way for me to
Yeah.
network and to provide value and all that and get to know
Yeah.
people. So the
Yeah.
reason I'm bringing all that up is there are people out there that are like, yes, I've heard that networking is what you're supposed to do, but I hate it because I'm going to a function that feels very artificial, that feels like I have to go and like meet everybody in the room. And to your point, you don't, right? You can just focus on a couple of people.
Yep.
And the expectation then is, this is where I think it gets weird too. If I'm doing cold outreach, I'm doing it with a very transparent of, hey, this is some way that I can help you. This is why I'm reaching out to you specifically. Is this something of interest? I feel like very clean doing that. I think with networking, what's tricky is even on LinkedIn or in person is people are going into it with the mindset that they know it should be about the other person, but really they're going there because they want to get clients. And I think that's a weird dissonance for people to kind of to be really to really kind of like get balance on because they know they should be doing it for one reason, but what's really getting them to get out of the house and go in the car in the snow is the fact that
Right.
they're trying to build their business. So again, it's not really a question, but do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know
I
I was
do. So
rambling.
it's, yeah. So as a coach, I would say, let's look at the mindset of that, right? So let's, what if we flip the switch? Instead of thinking that I'm reaching out or they're reaching out to me because we know that they want clients, and we all want clients. But what if I flip that switch and think, okay, I'm going to reach out to them. It's not about them. Maybe they're not the person that I want as a client. It's somebody they know. Who it's about that 6 degrees of separation. Oh, so you I want to get to know a little bit more about your business. I have 4,000 people that are somehow connected with me on LinkedIn. I don't know half of them. That's okay. um, but I have
I love
4,000
that you at
people,
least admit it like I do. I don't know who any of these people are.
right? So, you're on LinkedIn. Who can I introduce you to? Who do you want to be connected with? And so maybe in that conversation, we can set up a follow up. Hey, let's follow up again and see how we can continue to help each other. Oh, and here are some of the things that I'm looking for, you know, as I share what I am looking for. And hopefully the other person's going to ask. If they don't ask, here's the key thing. If the other person that you are talking to does not ask you anything about your business, then at the end of the conversation, you can say something to the effect of like, it is so great talking with you. I know that our paths will probably cross. If at any point in time you want to reach out to me, go right ahead. It's been a pleasure. End of story, done. Move on. Take them off your list. They're not somebody to do business with or partner with. So bless and release. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Right?
I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm like, off camera nodding my head like, oh, you're so true. It's so true. There's, I think that's the change that I've realized in the last few years, what makes it possible or makes me willing and wanting to do what we call networking. Maybe not at these in-person events because this is not my thing, right? But it's like, you know, realizing that it can't all fall on our own shoulders. And if people are there with only the intent, like at an event, let's say, or on LinkedIn, if their only intention is to try to sell you their thing and they're not interested at all in getting to know you and how we can help each other, I think that's the mindset. And it might not be helping each other in the sense of we are each other's clients. It could be you come on my podcast. That's a way for me to help people, right? I come on their podcast or we share whatever it is, right? There's people I know now through the podcast, especially that we just get on the Zoom once in a while. We're just sharing war stories, right?
Right.
It's so nice, and I think that's the key. Though there was a book, Give and Take, by Adam Grant. I don't know if you've read that, but he talks about the difference between givers, takers, and matchers, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
takers are the ones that you want to just avoid because
Yep.
they're not in it at all. They're just basically going to see, are you a target? If not, can you do something for me? If not, you'll never hear from them again. And if
Right.
you can go into any kind of networking relationship, whether live or over online or whatever, with the attitude of, hey, I'm willing to get to know this person and help them in ways that have nothing to do with my business, but I'm paying attention to how they behave. If I'm the only one ever reaching out to them,
Yeah.
no,
Right.
you know, it's and I've gotten a lot more strict with myself, the boundaries about who
Right.
I maintain in my network, if you want to call it that, right?
Yeah. And I think, I think what you said is just, it's really, really true. And it's important. Like, you know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking as you're saying that, like the give and take of reaching out to people. I'm like, oh, I need to reach out to somebody I haven't spoken to her. Like I haven't reached out to her. So note to self, like I got to reach out to Shannon, right? So Shannon, if you're listening to this, I'm reaching out to you. She's a friend.
That'd be crazy if she was listening to
I
this.
know. um, but it's but key thing too. It's like this. It's the same thing in in friendships and relationships. You can't always you know you can't be the one that's always reaching out. And I'm going to relate this to back to dating. So if anybody's in the dating world, like remember, it's the relationship should not be difficult. It should not it's work in the sense of like, yes, I need to reach out to them, they need to reach out to me, it's something that I need to do. But if you're the one that's always chasing the person, you know what? Say bless and release. It's not worth it. And it's the same thing with any male or female. If you're chasing them, it's not worth it. It has to be mutual.
And there has to be something beyond, or I'm saying for myself, I can't speak for anybody else, but for
Yeah.
me, there has to be something more there than just a synergy, a common business
Right.
interest, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, to your point, it's like if I don't even really like this person, which is tough because I
Right.
like people, but it's like
Right.
sometimes you're just like, this person's kind of mean. Like
Yeah.
that, I don't know if I want to be around him.
Yeah.
But like if they're just I think the reason I'm bringing this up and I'm kind of projecting onto everybody else that they have this problem, which they probably don't. But I think my thing with building a network, which I was horrible at until 2020 when I started doing podcasting, was I felt like it was always, always, always on me to maintain the relationship. And then I realized it's like, wait a minute,
It's a two-way
uh,
street.
can't do it.
Yeah. But so two things, even though, what we're just talking about, like you want to make sure that there's a volley back and forth, that you're not always the person that's always reaching out. But here's the other key thing to also keep in mind, which is it's a little counter to that, is it's your business, right? So you have to remember to keep reaching out to that person if you want to make that connection. So once the connection is made and that person doesn't volley back, that's when you can bless and release. But we do have to remember it's our business. I love, and so this is just like another like big tip. I have a sales process that I have worked through, and people will say it takes anywhere between 7 and 12 touches for a person to get back to you. I use a 6-touch system. um well, it goes beyond 6, but I'll share with you. Let's just take a week. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday, I'm going to reach out to X number of people. I'm going to um do 2 forms of connections, whether it's email, text messenger, whatever it is. I'm going to do Monday. Wednesday, I'm going to do 2 again. They might be 2 different ones. Maybe it's a phone call. Yep, I actually use my phone.
It's a lost art.
Yeah, it is a lost art. Um, yeah, we carry them around with us and we don't do anything with them. And we do, but not what they're used for. Um, and then on Friday, I do another one. Okay, so that Friday to reach out is something more like, hey, Marcus, I am so sorry we haven't connected. I know that we're all so super busy. I do look forward to connecting with you at some point. I'm going to put you on my call list for next month, unless I hear from you first. I hope you have an amazing rest of your month or week, whatever. Blah blah blah. Me hope to connect with you soon, right? And that's what, short, sweet, but like you kind of leave it open to not close it off, but you also understand that people are busy. And so I like that combination of messaging an email and letting people know, like, hey, I just sent you an email. You may want to check it. It may have gone into your spam, but I wanted, it's a little bit, it's introducing myself because I know we haven't met before. And I'm master networker. I love making connections with people, hoping that you and I can connect soon. Right. So, but having that process so that you can do that.
And you're taking the initiative. And it's a good point that you brought up. And I'm glad that you brought this up because, yeah, you're right. It's not a 50-50 thing necessarily. I thought about this recently where I was like, hey, I'll be happy if they just bring it 25%. Just meet me part way. I don't expect people, sometimes it's the opposite. They're the ones really, putting in more effort maybe, and that's lovely. But it's a great point you made where it's like it is your business and it's your job to initiate, to take ownership of the process. And then to pay attention, is there anything there? If not, then you that bless and release, and then and really kind of looking at it and saying, who's going to own this process? And it doesn't mean that they have to reciprocate in that way, but then it gives you options because if you're the one being proactive, there's thousands of people out there, tens of hundreds of thousands, millions, whatever. There's always other people that you can connect with. Now you have choices because then you could be a little pickier, right? Because if you know I'm going to be the one that's going to take the initiative to reach out to people, hey, if whoever just doesn't seem interested, that's okay.
Right.
That's cool.
Right.
And then what's crazy is, I don't know if you've experienced this, especially with LinkedIn. I've had people that I thought were in that camp that have referred me like jobs. And I don't mean like a client, I mean like a job. So you never know these loose
Right.
connections, right? That
Right. You just
still
never know.
you
Right.
never know ever.
Right. And yes, do you, if you're using LinkedIn or something else, do you have to weed out the bullshit? Sorry. Yes. I mean, I know that I probably get spammed messages, every day. Hey, I saw you on doing this and I know that I could help you with this. How do you know that's where I want even in my business right now? Maybe I don't care about that right now because it's not my focus. You don't even know. So yeah, bless and release those. Say thank you very much, not interested, or you're part of the problem, um, and move on.
And it's that assumption that I find difficult with
Yeah,
with outreach. I mentioned about cold outreach, right? I
yeah,
am not one of those people who thinks that reaching out to somebody with an intention to help them in a specific way is somehow pitching them as a dirty word. It's all in how you do it, right?
right,
Like there's a thing called pitch slapping, which we all have heard of,
right,
most of us, right?
right,
And it's the I'm coming to connect with you under one context, but I have an agenda that I'm not disclosing yet. And we're going to connect. And now I'm going to say what I'm really reaching. That I have a big problem with
oh
because it's
yes,
like
yeah,
first of all, this is all built on trust, and yet just destroyed it from the first step.
yeah, the bait and
And
switch. Oh,
the bait and switch. And,
yeah,
and, and so it's counterproductive. But the second thing is like, if you reach out, this is just my opinion, if you reach out to somebody and you're saying, this is how I can help if this is a problem. And I think that's the key point here. If this is a problem, if this is something that feels like a fit for you, not going, I know that I can help you solve this because to your point, you don't know what their problem is. You don't know if they even care about this. But to
right,
go into it with this thing of, this might not be something you're interested, in, but if it is, I'd love to chat about it. I think that I had to learn to get more comfortable with that approach and have people still be like, no, not interested. But I think that's a fine line for some people, and it just depends on your personality and what you think is appropriate. But again, there's lots of ways to connect with people.
yeah,
And as long as you're doing it in a way that you feel okay with, that you feel is like this aligns with who I am and my values, then
authentic to
you're
you.
probably,
Right,
yeah, to you, then you're probably in safe harbor, right?
right. And so it's so true that you said that. It's like if you're going to reach out to somebody, if you don't feel cringy, if it right or to you, if it's not cringy to you, then fine, great. But if it does feel cringy, or if you put yourself on the other side of it, like I always say, How would you feel if you received that message? Right. And so, so inviting somebody to something, sharing something. Hey, I saw that you were, this is what you do on LinkedIn. I have this event coming up. I thought maybe you might be interested in it, or, you know, curious if you would know somebody that might be, there's always ways you can ask questions of somebody to introduce yourself to. Um, but introduce yourself and talk about why you want to make that connection. What is it about that person's profile that was like, oh, that's interesting. I think I might want to connect with them. I mean, and for me, it's actually kind of funny. One of the things that I have on my, agendas for 2025 is if I'm connected with 4,000 people on LinkedIn, I actually want to go in and have conversations with those 4,000 people. Not obviously not going to have them, but I'm connected with you. Hey, let's have a quick conversation. How can we make LinkedIn better and work better for us based on this connection? Who do we, what's our 6 degrees of separation? Like who do you need to know?
Yeah, it's a great idea, especially if nothing else than to kind of trim your following or your connection because the problem with LinkedIn is that it's too easy, right? If you go to an event, it takes some effort. It's way too easy just to send connection requests, and I'm guilty of both sending too many and accepting too many. And you realize I don't know who any of these people are, and I gotten enough connections where I feel like at the beginning you just want to get somebody, right? Because if you have
Right,
like 89 of them, it looks weird, right? So you're just kind of you want to get to
right,
that 500 plus point, right?
right, right,
But after that, it's like, wait a minute, I don't even know them. I don't need to collect names, and I certainly don't need to just have more stuff to scroll through. So really looking at everybody's different, but figuring out, you know, first of all, what your own kind of special approach is going to be that works for you. But I think
yep,
also getting to a point where we're comfortable, even if our approach is immaculate, even if we're going in with the cleanest of consciences, to realize that it's not going to be a fit for everybody. And we have to, and I'm saying this to myself, have to learn to accept that you know what, some people aren't going to care about my podcast or coming on to it as a guest, and that
right,
doesn't mean I suck. It just means
right,
they're not into it. That's
right,
cool, and I didn't do anything wrong by reaching out to them. So
right,
there's that whole ball of wax that I think a lot of people can relate to.
right. So, there's that saying, like, some will, someone won't. So what? Who cares about the rest? Right. Right.
Your
So,
intention is you're okay with your intention.
right.
And I think that's one of the things we're selling anything, and we are selling. Let's not,
Okay.
right?
Everybody, this is the funniest thing. I don't care what profession you are in. I don't, and I've heard this 1,001 times. I don't sell. I don't want to sell. If you're a parent, you're freaking in sales. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm like clapping. Thank you. Thank you for yes. Thank you.
Where everybody's in sales. I don't
Absolutely.
care. Some people just do it better than others. Some people have refined their skills. Some people do it more naturally, but trust me, you were all in sales.
One of the many things I say way too often on this show is like when we talk about selling is that, and I read this in a book called Soft Selling in a Hard World 20 years ago. It was like my first selling book that I fell in love with, right? I'm going to paraphrase, but he said basically, people learn about selling through the worst of its practitioners, right? So we think we know what selling is because that person who was really pushy, that person who was really obnoxious, that's what must it must be to
Hey,
sell
you want to
something.
buy this hairbrush and you want to buy
Yeah,
this car.
sell me this pen, Jordan
Right,
Belfort, right? Like
right,
ick, right? So selling truly is, we could call it serving, we could call it yeah, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, selling is we are solving problems for people and we're taking the initiative to reach enough people to help them solve it, right? And to actually remove the obstacles to them doing it. So to take away this kind of like ick feeling of what it means to sell. Yes, I know we all want to serve. That's why we're here. But if we're afraid to ever have somebody be annoyed with us because we over, I don't like to be pitched. Oh my God. Like I'm again talking to myself. Like my thing now is I've realized that mindset only takes me so far. Now I'm at the nervous system level with myself because I've realized that I have a highly dysfunctional nervous system when it comes to rejection, when it comes to that kind of thing. So this dysregulation of my nervous system that creates enormous anxiety. That's my project for 2025. And yes, that's all selling related. That's all, oh my God, they rejected me. I'm a horrible person and I'm going to fail and die alone in a gutter, right? So I'm saying all this from experience of
Right.
we have to, if you want to build a client base, you have to get over this idea that somehow selling is beneath you. You just have to learn to do it better.
Right. And there's different ways to learn to do it better. There's I'm a big fan of all of the Go Givers books. Bob Berg, he just there's another book that he just wrote. It's oh my God, just totally blanked on the name. Anyway, uh Streets Wise to Sales Wise or something like that.
Oh, that's cool. I got to pick that up. I'll
Yeah.
just I'll just Google or
Yeah.
look on Amazon for the newest one.
Yeah. That was it was actually it's a really good book. So I'm a big fan of the Go Givers approach. I mean, there's so many, you know, different people who have talked about that process and the idea of being a go giver in their writings. But it really is true that again, it comes down to looking at the other person and talking to them and having a conversation and understanding that you are there to help them solve a problem. And remember that you are not the solution for everyone,
That's it.
right?
That's you're not this, or other ways to say it is maybe
Right.
it's not a good fit. That's what I have to keep telling myself.
And
Might
if it's
not be a
not
good fit.
you, right? If it's not you, maybe there's somebody in your Rolodex. God, that's an old word, right?
Aha, Google it, kids.
Right. Used to sit on your desk and that was a kind of a cool thing.
And then they're
Added
like,
to
"What's a
Rolodex.
desk?"
No. Right. But seriously, like out of your contacts, who do you know that you could be like, oh, you know what? I don't think I'm the right fit for you, but you know what? I think I know somebody who is. Let me make that connection.
Is that you're still serving them, you're still helping them solve a
Right.
problem. I'm going to ask you in a minute to kind of close this out with
Yep.
some maybe advice for people. But speaking of the Go Giver books, one in particular that I really liked was the Go Givers Sell More, I think is
Yep.
the name
Yep.
of it. Now, fast forwarding now, because I think that was probably 15 years ago or something. There's a recent book by Mo Burnell, I believe is his name, and it's Give to Grow. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, I haven't, but
Very much the same mindset, which is what I liked, but this is specifically for people that sell expertise that are in professional services.
oh,
So I read that a few months ago and I was like, this is my new favorite sales book. And I do that too much because I'm like, this is my new favorite book, whatever.
yeah,
But
I'm gonna have to go get that.
phenomenal. Give to
Yeah.
Grow for anybody. I've mentioned it a few times, but that is really the essence. Like for the first time, reading a book about selling and outreach and creating value for people that really it was like, oh, I'm not crazy. Thank you.
Right. Yeah,
Because
that's
it's,
great. Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I love that. And it's amazing. There's so many books out there that are just, it's saying the same thing in a different way, but like anything, it's how you hear it. You could hear the same thing. It's like, again, the conscious and not unconscious and conscious competency, but sometimes you could hear it. You may say the same thing that I do, but but the person in the audience, for whatever reason, hear me say it and they're like, "Ooh, I get it," or they hear you say it and like, "Wow, that was phenomenal," and you're like, "I've been telling you that," and like maybe you're sitting next to the person who's like, "I've been saying that shit for years."
Right now, it finally, or maybe it's just because it's the 18th time they heard it, and it could have been delivered exactly the same way, but it just took that many times to get through my thick skull, which happens
Right.
all the time, right? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's why I like these conversations. The themes that I talk to people about are often very similar, but just hearing it in different ways, I always learn something different from everybody I talk with. So thank you for that, for bringing that today. I'm going to ask you just to close this out the last
Yep.
couple of minutes. Somebody listening, we've been talking a lot about networking, and I've been kind of like spilling my guts about the things that bother me about it, sometimes whatever. So people that are listening, they're like, listen, I know that I want to do more of this, right? But I feel a little overwhelmed, right? I feel a little over like, where do I even really get started again? If you were starting out from scratch, what would you do? What would be the first two or three things you'd focus on?
So if I'm starting from scratch, and I've done that, so I want to share the reason. I'm not just saying this without backing. Just to give you some context, I did move across the country in 2018 from Massachusetts to Reno, Nevada, and I knew Donut, right? Zero people. I shouldn't say that. I knew my realtor, but I didn't really know her. Um, the mortgage person, and that was it. So I had to start from scratch, building connections and meeting people, rebuilding a business. So the first thing that I would recommend if you are starting out or you're saying 2025 is my year, I'm going big, I'm going bold. First of all, I like both in person and online things. But you have to decide first and foremost, what do you like? Are you are you open to in person? If you are open to in person, do look in your area for local networking events for you to meet people. You know, go online, do Google searches. If your chamber is doing things right, they have a list of them. So do your Google searches. Yes, look at your favorite social media platforms and search for in-person events. They all have them listed. Find something that resonates with you, that you like, that might even be focused on your on people that you want to connect with. So maybe you want to connect with people that might want to be connected with people in commercial real estate. There's lots of commercial real estate things. Just throwing that out there. Um, so go online, start looking at events in person and start going. Put your big girl boy pants on. Don't just put them on your
Just
calendar.
hike them up,
Hike them
switch out
off.
of your sweats.
Wedgie. Sorry. Like,
Yeah.
go, right? Um, and I've got a couple of tips here. Or when you're going to an in-person event, I don't give a rat's ass what the freaking hell happened to you in the morning, in the evening, during the day, and notice neither does anybody else. So whatever you've got going on, leave it at the door, leave it in your car. I love giving people some tips that they can do, like, each individual person like gives them like one of my clients, she leaves her jacket in the car, so she leaves her baggage in the car, so she doesn't bring her jacket in, whatever it is, right? Like, leave your jacket in the car, walk in, smile on your face, go in with the idea that you want to ask other people questions, right? Go in with that thought, smile, approach, shake your hand, name tag on the right side. So when I'm looking at you, I'm not going like this. I'm looking at your boob instead, right? To trying to figure out what you are, right? There's different schools of thought on that. I just like direct so I can see who you are. Um, Again, there's other things that I could recommend, but go pick some events, go, and then make your follow up. You have to do the follow up. If you're going to go and the event is 2 hours, spend 2 hours following up the next day. Because if you don't do that, don't even bother going, because it's a waste of your freaking time. So that's sort of like one thing. That's what I did. I grew, when I moved here, I started making big connections that way. People would say to me, you know more people than I do, and I've lived here my whole life. Okay. So that's one. Number two, get online. Go online. There are definitely there are definitely online networking things. I don't like all of them. Some of them are kind of cringy. It's like speed dating. So you can do some of those, or do reach outs, ask people, like, you know, reach out to somebody if, if you're starting out, that's, in something similar, and say, hey, you know what? I'm starting out. I want to pick your brain. Would you be open? I want to connect. I'm trying to make, more connections so I can build my sphere of influence. Build your sphere. Be honest with people too. Let them know, hey, I am going into a new market. I'm looking to build my sphere of influence in this. Would you be open to a call and connect? How can we support each other and help? Book those calls. Again, it's your business. You're going to get you'll get no's. So those are my biggest tips. And the other thing is, I always love to share this. And I actually, I have a sheet. It's called the no sheet, like no shit, no sheet. Go for no. So if anybody wants it, just message me. I will send it to you. It actually might be in one of my sales training books too, but message me. I will
Actually, a
send you.
great book called Go for No,
Right.
which is,
It's a
yeah,
great. Go for no.
fantastic.
I mean, I just kind of always know. I've always been. It was something that was ingrained in my head. So the number of no's that you get will lead to a yes. And why do you? So celebrate the no's, learn from the no's, figure out what about the conversation, and and remember, the no is, it's no, not you. It could be no, not now. It is, or no, I'm not interested. I don't need that right now. Or no, I'm an asshole and I don't want to make connections. I mean, like,
Say it's always the last one. If we're being, no, I'm just kidding.
but go for no and celebrate the no's. So I, like, on the sheet that I made, it's 10. And then there's a little gift box. You got to do 10 and then celebrate.